Engadget Podcast is brought to you by Verizon's powerful answers, because the world's biggest challenges deserve even bigger solutions. My Heart is brought to you by Terrence O'Brien. Hey, Terrence.
Hi, Brian.
What's up, buddy?
Nothing. How
Just
you doing?
you and me. Just
I
you
know.
and me. Just
Finally
you and me on the show.
got
Finally
everything
got
you
Gilbert
ever
out
wanted.
of here. Dana's probably stuck in a snowbank somewhere. I imagine.
Yeah, that's what I can only assume. I wouldn't let a little thing like Mother Nature stop me, though, from coming here and talking to you and staring into your beautiful baby blues there.
Santa is technically in a different state, right?
I'm pretty sure it's its own country.
Okay. Hercules is the name of the winter storm that's currently bearing down on us.
Yep.
I mean, a pretty good name for a storm as far as these things go.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds dangerous. All the other storms, it's like Sandy, like
sure, like it
did a lot of damage,
feminine, but not and just like a standard, like a waitress's name.
Yeah,
Sandy.
it's a character from Greece.
Yeah,
it's
Katrina, not a particularly terrifying name.
Yeah, but
it
Hercules
might be inversely proportional. I don't think this is going to be a Sandy.
No, it's definitely not going to be.
But we may never make it to Las Vegas.
Yes. Which
not
necessarily a bad thing.
worse things have happened.
If I don't have to be locked in a trailer for 8 days, I'm not going to be terribly upset about that.
You might want to just, out of sort of to be, just to kind of live out the your CES week. I'm sure that trailers probably aren't too hard to find on Staten Island, right?
We do have a trailer park, singular to my knowledge.
Yeah, but it's like the lower half of the island.
It's like right under the bridge, like literally under the bridge.
Do you have a trailer park under the bridge?
Yep. That is where we put them.
That's good. We knocked out a couple of stereotypes all at once. CES is also bearing down on us like so many winter storms.
Yes.
So it's pretty much just you and I in the office today, which is nice. Everybody else is kind of, I guess, on their way there or preparing themselves.
Yeah, sitting at home packing, which is probably something I should be doing. But
I will be doing, assuming that my plane is going out tomorrow, I will be doing all of my packing probably around 10 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
I got pretty good at just throwing things in a bag. I don't know what, I haven't figured out what it is that takes people so long to pack. Like what packing means to most people if it's not literally just throwing a bunch of things into a bag.
I mean, I feel like you care a little bit less and are probably less apt to forget things because you do a lot more traveling. So you just like prep to go at all times.
Yeah.
Whereas I
see.
I have like my daily carry. I have to make sure that I have every time I've done the last minute packing thing, I leave something important home.
All right. Mi-Fi.
I've left that behind.
Camera.
I've left that behind.
Camera charger. I assume you've left.
I've left that behind.
Business cards.
I always leave those behind.
Those. You don't need business cards. I mean, it's not really that important in the grand scheme of things.
And last year at Mobile World Congress, I managed to go with not enough socks.
And they don't have those in Spain.
Well, I mean, I had to go to like a mall in Barcelona and go buy socks.
How are Catalan socks different from the rest? How are Spanish socks different?
They're labeled left and right, which I'd never seen before.
Well, it's
weird.
Guess helpful,
I suppose.
But I mean, socks are kind of unifoot, right?
Yeah,
this
would
has
think
been
so.
my experience.
You would think so, but
were
apparently
they differently?
not.
Were they differently shaped?
Yes, they are actually slightly different.
There weren't toe socks.
No.
Okay.
They were just like
Spanish socks are different.
Yeah, they were just like plain the cheapest white athletic socks I could buy at the mall.
I think this would be.
And there's a little red L&R on them.
That's nice. I think. Wait, in English?
Weird, right?
Huh, yeah, yeah. Should be a D and derecha and.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I stopped caring because I found out that I will not be covering Mobile World Congress this year. I was like, so I don't have to bone up one.
You stopped caring because your wife, in spite of what you might think, can't actually speak any Spanish at all. I would like to see a blog that really breaks down the differences. Socks by country, because I feel like there's probably some really interesting socks out there when it comes right down to it.
I'm sure there are. I think this is something we could put together. We can make this happen.
Socks the world.
Yeah.
.tumblr.com.
Let's leave this silly technology site and
if
start
you're
our
in the chat right now,
sock-based blog empire.
Or you could send us an email afterwards if you're watching this, next week after all of this is totally irrelevant, send us an email. What do you know about the socks of the world? Chat. Yeah, we're on Twitter. Tweet us.
Tweet us about your socks.
Tweet us at Socks of the World. So I'm going to hopefully register that after the show. Why are we talking about socks, Terrence? Because we have nothing else to talk about this week. I don't know. I kind of just wanted to do a podcast. It felt right.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to give the people what they want. They expect us here week after week, and it's our jobs to bring them mindless entertainment if we can't bring them tech news.
I mean, does CNN just shut down when there's no news that week?
No, they just make stuff up.
So that's what we're going to be doing on today's show. 9K TV coming to you at CES next week.
Yeah, sure. We're going to do the tech podcast equivalent of there's something happening over here behind me. I can't quite tell what it is yet, but I'm going to just point at it and talk into a microphone until
I will do that. I would love to do that at CES. Like just to stand in front of the closed convention store doors and speculate what might be behind them for a weekend. Man. Cuz we get there early. We get there way before the show technically doesn't start until Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we're going to be there. I mean, some people are there already.
Yeah, some
setting
people
up the trailer.
Got there. Me and you are both supposed to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will not be.
I might be.
You might be.
Depending on how tough Hercules really is.
I just decided
He's only a demigod, by the way.
Demigod?
He's not a full-fledged
yeah.
god.
So you might be okay. Yeah. But I just decided to accept defeat and move my flight to Saturday, which gives me one less day in Vegas, which I'm not terribly upset about.
By the way, the Trials of Hercules, how many Trials of Hercules can you name?
Man, I know
the Hydra.
So little about
Did you know that one of the Trials of Hercules is him cleaning out stables, like really messy horse stables? Here's where it gets really interesting though. Is he redirects a river to clean out the horse stables?
Interesting.
It's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
I remember the Hydra.
Very inventive.
You know how he defeats the Hydra.
Once again, I know.
Do you know what the Hydra is?
Yeah, I know what the Hydra is.
Every time you cut off a head, two grow back.
Yeah,
cauterizes it. Smart guy.
He is a smart guy
for such a muscle head.
Yeah. Why do we know him for being so strong when he's apparently such an ingenious fellow?
I mean, he was also super strong. I mean, that's like the main talking point of Hercules.
He was so strong that it supersedes his clearly superior intellect.
Nobody talks about what a great fashion sense he had. I just assume he wore a toga and one of those leafy things in his hair.
Yeah.
We are actually going to talk. This is how out of news we are. Now that the sock news portion of the show is done, we are going to be talking about what happened in 2013.
We're just going to do a whole year wrap up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a 12-hour show.
Yeah.
Brace yourselves. My favorite socks of the year.
And what are those?
I've been wearing some gold toes lately.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the gold toes. Yeah.
Nice. They're pretty good.
I'm wearing my suit a little bit more, so I've been wearing dress socks on a little more regular. Got dressed up on for. What did you do for New Year's, Terrence? Let's talk about that.
I initially planned on doing nothing. Mm-hmm. I stopped by my parents' house, played some cards, and then at 10:30,
you thought better of it.
No, actually, I didn't think better of it. I want to stay in on New Year's. I'm not the guy who wants to go out and party on New Year's, for as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like Staten Island would just be like a nightmare on New Year's.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
It's the day after Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve.
The day after Thanksgiving?
Or the day before Thanksgiving, sorry.
Even still.
It's when everybody comes home from college. So everybody goes out. It's amateur night.
Yeah.
So it's St. Patty's Day, the day before Thanksgiving, and New Year's Eve. These are days that I just do not want to leave my house. But at 10:30 at night, I got a call from my wife's brother asking us where we were. Apparently, he was having a party and neglected to mention it to us and was very upset that we were not there.
Oh.
So at 10:30, I had to drive all the way into Queens.
Oh.
And
we could have hung out.
Yeah. And then I got home at like 5:30 in the morning.
Not only did you get home at 5:30 in the morning, you got home in 2014.
Yep.
Man, here's the thing I never got on the West Coast. So a relatively new phenomenon to me is the vomit sticks around for about a week because it freezes.
Oh yeah.
So the and Astoria, Queens, which you tend to think of as kind of a quiet, reasonably well-behaved neighborhood, all considered,
but a lot of bars and restaurants.
Yeah, just the streets just paved and frozen vomit.
Did you actually go out, or were you smart enough to just stay in and enjoy your very nice whiskey?
What? No, that picture might have been misleading. I didn't buy Pappy. That would have been my salary for the year. No, we went. It was low key, but we went to a bar and they had every Pappy.
Oh, okay.
Don't ask me how much I spent for a glass of 23-year-old Pappy.
It's New Year's Eve. It's a special occasion.
It was less than you spent for that one beer in Las Vegas. I'll say that.
Okay, that's not that bad then.
No, it was actually significantly less. It actually wasn't bad, all said.
Because I was going to say, I spent almost the equal amount of that on a glass of whiskey at that same bar in Vegas that night.
Yeah. If you are not going to CES, who is going? No, we are going to CES.
Oh yeah, no, we are
assuming that nature wants us to.
Yeah, assuming that Hercules doesn't literally destroy New York.
That would be a good movie. Like a sequel to a Hercules movie. Hercules destroys New York. Using his great fashion sense and super smart brain.
And then imagine all of the clear follow-ups. You could have Hercules versus Godzilla. Mm-hmm. You could do
Hercules and Godzilla team up to destroy the rubble of New York.
Yeah.
So 2013 was
a year.
It was a year. It was all said was a little difficult, I think, to pull together some of these stories of the top events. I would go so far as to say that so far as tech news is concerned, 2013 wasn't a particularly exciting year.
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't think it was not exciting. I think, though, that the big stories this year were a lot more complex than they were in years past.
We're a little out of our wheelhouse, generally.
Yeah, this wasn't the year of, huge product launches that everybody got super excited about. There wasn't like I can't think of a marquee item to talk about, but I can think of a number of sagas, like lengthy, ongoing.
Let me back up and say that, maybe we can agree that 2013 was a boring year for consumer electronics.
Yes.
Okay. Google Glass.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not consumer electronics, though, either.
That's a fair point. Chromecast was neat.
Chromecast is awesome.
I bought like 4 Chromecasts for people over the holidays.
I mean, I'm going to eventually buy another one for myself just cause.
Sure, because you got 2 ports on your TV, so you might as well use both of them.
Well, I mean, I have 2 TVs, so I might as well have 2 Chromecasts.
2 TVs, huh?
Yeah.
Uncle Moneybags?
Yeah.
Yeah? 2 TVs in New York City. Pebble was kind of a thing, but I guess maybe a 2012 thing. Wearables were interesting,
I suppose,
as a space.
It's a thing that continued to grow.
Well, let's talk about wearables for a minute, because that's certainly something that comes up. Let's talk about this concept of wearables as being one of the defining stories of 2013, because I think it seems a little disingenuous in that
I'm inclined to agree with you, but continue.
Wearables were a thing in 2013 in so much as we were talking about how many wearables there will be in the future. There were a lot of fitness trackers.
Yep.
You tried all of them on.
Yeah, pretty much.
There were a handful of smartwatches.
Yeah.
Pebble, as we said, 2012, but Sony came out with another one. Samsung came out with one which didn't quite take off. People have been talking about an Apple one since the beginning of the year.
Well, people have been talking about an Apple one since like the beginning of time.
People have been talking very seriously about an Apple one, certainly since the beginning of the year. Google Glass was a big story.
Yeah.
But just because it was an interesting product.
Because it's a crazy product.
Yeah.
Well, not just interesting. Let's get past the, try to move past some of that sort of hardened shell that we've built up that.
Well, there's that. There's the shell. Another wearable. The shell that we built to shield us from technology.
But I mean, do you remember when Google first put up that first video? We both were like, this is craziness. Yeah. I want one. I want one now.
Yeah.
And I mean,
skydivers helped.
No, before the skydivers. Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, what they delivered didn't live up to the concept video hype.
There were a lot of simulated images in the video, and now that we've tried them on, it's not quite the future that they painted for us.
No, it's not. But it's still an extremely exciting product. I think for all of its faults, it's something legitimately exciting, even if it's not something you can currently see yourself using. or maybe even in 6 months or a year you can't see yourself using. It's one of the few things out there that's original, and I'm like, that's something that nobody else is doing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, wearables aren't totally original, and we've certainly seen augmented reality before. They're doing it in a different way.
Yeah, and
you can argue.
That's the thing. It's not just. I mean, I don't mean that it's original in that nobody's ever made a pair of glasses with a display on it before, but the particular implementation is relatively original. Not many companies out there are doing anything quite like it.
And they're kind of doing it in a way that only Google could do it. And that's what lends an air of legitimacy to it, is that it's Google. I mean, I think that's why it was such a crazy product. If we had just seen some startup company come out with a pair of wearables, nobody would be excited. But this company, who has buzz aside, has a pretty good track record with launching products.
Yeah, I mean, and they have things that ultimately don't pan out. We saw 3 more of those this week, but that's that's
you really want to talk about Flock?
I don't want to. I really actually. But the stuff like that doesn't pan out usually isn't the big marquee items. Occasionally it is. Occasionally it's a wave. Occasionally it's a buzz.
Well,
but more often than not, it
was a Q.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That one was so bad, I almost forgot about it.
But I and this was backing up to a point you made earlier, which is, can you say necessarily? I mean, what do you mean when you say marquee? You mean just sort of the engine that's behind it? I mean, obviously it's not a big consumer device yet.
No, it's not. But they've still put an insane PR engine behind it, a huge push behind it. Things that it's a push that you don't see for even some of their other bigger products necessarily. I mean, usually the stuff that tends to die off quietly, and it's things like Google Notebook. Who remembers that?
Yeah.
Nobody. It was a thing. I mean, even Wave by the end, like Wave came out and they made a big push initially, and then realized nobody had any idea what to do with it.
Sure.
And then just shut up about it.
Which arguably could be what happens with glass. I mean, I really like really like the idea. To a degree, I like the implementation. I had a very interesting talk with Timothy Jordan, the developer evangelist who was with us at Expand, and I really like the reasons behind it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll say. I like the reasons behind it. We have a pair of glass around, and I don't, I'm not rushing to put them on my face.
No,
even though we have this, $1,500 piece of gear sitting around in our offices.
Yeah.
None of us are wearing it right now.
No. Though, to be fair, once again, I don't know that you're the guy who would rush out and put on a pair of glass even if it was not a complete disappointment.
Well, I'm excited to try new things, certainly.
To try it, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was excited to put them on my face when Tim was walking around them initially, like as everybody else was, and I just don't. It's a platform, though. I mean, that's that's. I mean, maybe that's a story of 2013. Is the idea really of
literally
the
everything.
Device as a platform?
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything
obviously that's not. But that's not. I mean, that's not a new concept, right?
No.
I mean, and certainly like the second iPhone really ushered that in a big way. But those were already devices that you were purchasing because they already brought some value to your life. Now, something like Google Glass and a lot of these other products don't really have any immediate value. I mean, I think Pebble is, it's a watch. Nobody's wearing watches. People stopped wearing watches. If you just need the time, yeah, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, if you need the time, you've got your phone. So you're not rushing out to buy a watch right now. You're waiting until that platform really comes of age. And that, that might be the story of 2013 is like these big, as you said, marquee products that don't really necessarily have a market until all of these third-party developers scramble out and develop good things for them.
Yeah. I don't know. They're going to have to figure out something to get us to buy in 2014, and you're going to need the developers on board to make us do it.
We're actually we didn't even ask for questions, but we're getting them. This is exciting. What do you think about 3D printing? Do you think it'll take off this year? Well,
depends on what you mean by take off.
That's a very complicated question.
Yeah, I mean...
And here is my 20-minute answer to that question. Yeah, it depends on what you mean by take off. Do I think we're going to see some very well-priced, very user-friendly 3D printers at CES this year? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I think that we're going to see, I would even argue, exponential explosion in the purchase of 3D printers is probably going to happen this year. That said, like, the number isn't really all that huge to begin with.
Yeah, it could quadruple, and it would still be, a tiny, tiny fraction of the population.
Well, yeah, it could quadruple, and you could still not know anybody who actually owns one of these things.
Yeah. It could probably multiply by a factor of 10, and you could still not know somebody who owns one.
3D printers have no practical home use, says It's Awesome Adam. Well, again, that depends on what you mean by practical use. Are they... Here's what I'll say. I think they have practical uses. Do I think, like, we're even close to a point where you can justify the cost of one of them based on the things you're printing out? Not even close.
No, but they do have a practical purpose, and people will continue to figure out practical things to do with them.
I mean, also, the point can be made that, like, they've already exploded, on the commercial side of things.
Yeah, and I mean,
rapid prototyping has been around for 30 years.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It depends on what you mean. Yeah. Even this year, the consumer side of it has kind of exploded to the extent that something as niche as that can explode.
What do you think? There's actually a 3D printer section at CES this year.
Yes,
there's enough of them to justify their own area.
Yep.
Which which maybe doesn't sound that interesting to people who haven't been to CES, but there aren't really that many areas when you come right down to it. There's the automotive area. There's that iPhone case island over there.
Yeah.
But there aren't a huge number of these areas. So I'm curious to see how many actual. I know of off the top of my head, I could probably name 6 or 7 probably.
Okay.
3D, but not a huge number. Certainly not enough to justify that size. But we went to. Not a great conference, but we went to that conference at the Javits Center.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. There was nothing announced, but there were a ton of companies. I did that. Remember that story that I did about it was kind of like a guide to
we did the roundup of.
It was probably like 25 companies, and I kept getting emails from other companies asking me why I hadn't included them in the roundup. So there's a lot of players right now.
I also think that was one where you were also kind of caught off guard by how many there were. And we're relatively in touch with the space. We've done a lot of coverage of it, me and you specifically. Yeah. And then
there are a lot of OEM companies. There's a bunch where you'll basically see the same printer pop up time and time again, rebranded.
But started researching that one and just turned out that there were all these companies and we had no idea.
How many of them are actually poised to actually be successful and to stick around? I mean, MakerBot certainly, 3D Systems. I mean, at the very least, they've got a huge infrastructure there.
Yeah, I mean, they could 3D Systems, and I don't think this is necessarily going to happen. Could fail completely probably in the consumer marketplace for 3D printers and probably still be fine.
Oh yeah, that's a huge. I mean, that's a very small percentage of their overall game plan.
So
if you're pretty much it's them and Linksys, Stratus.
Oh, okay.
The company that purchased MakerBot. I mean, those are really the two big commercial 3D printing companies out there. So yeah, I mean, it's a really small portion, but obviously it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. What do you think of Ouya and the Mojo and the Game Stick? I mean, here's the thing, right? If you're going to come out with a product and really define a new space, you should make sure that it's fully baked when it comes to market.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. Those are products that, honestly, I didn't get from day one, and I still don't get them.
I get them. I get them from the standpoint that they're $100, that they're a fraction of the price of these other sets. They're probably pretty decent for casual gaming, but you could probably beam your tablet to your TV screen.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the problem. You can connect a controller to your tablet or your phone, and a lot of phones and tablets can be connected to your TV. Yeah. I don't get the purpose of having
if the controller was a little bit better, it would make more sense, but that was one of the main hang-ups of the product. The other was that the game selection wasn't really there, and unless these companies are really, I mean, it seems like a lot of these things are going to be just ported over Android games because they're Android.
Not even, some of them aren't even ported over. I think at least one of them basically just has access to the Play Store.
Yeah.
So you're
So, I mean, unless you can get a ton of developers on board to create stuff specifically for that product, and really like, okay, maybe Mad Cats can bring a couple people over. I feel like Ouya really had the potential to do that, but that's kind of gone now unless we hear something really exciting coming from them in the next year or so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're done, but I think it's going to be really tough for them to recapture people's imaginations the way they did when it was first announced.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that they're going out of business this year, but I mean, any suggestion that they're going to become a major player.
Yeah, it's not going to be Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Ouya.
Somebody wants to know, what about Motorola Aura and phone blocks? I mean, it's a super cool concept.
Yeah, whether or not they can actually pull it off is something else entirely. I mean, it sounds really great in theory, and clearly this is where
things are going. I think modular phones, phones with more customization. Certainly,
I don't know that that's necessarily where things are going, but I think that's clearly where Google thinks it's going. That's where Motorola thinks it's going, and that's what they want to be at the forefront of that. But there's so many technical problems with building a truly modular phone.
But if anybody can do it,
it's Google. But there's a lot of issues with that from a purely technical perspective. And then barring that, there's the physical requirements that mean that anything of that nature is simply not going to be, a sleek, sexy device.
Well, that's the issue, right? Is there's it appears to be just kind of a uniform body for all of these.
Yeah, it's a rectangle that you plug squares into.
What I meant when I said that this is the direction things are going in, I don't necessarily mean these like modular squares, but more customization. I mean that's a story from this year, as are these Motorola products. Right now we're just talking about the cases and the backing, but I think things are going to move more and more in that direction as it gets easier to create devices on demand, and as it gets harder for companies to really kind of distinguish themselves from the competition.
I wouldn't be shocked to see more of it. I don't know that it's going to be a thing that everybody gets in on, though.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's going to be Motorola's thing for the time being. Companies like Samsung and HTC really rely on moving massive amounts of devices that kind of preclude them from doing that level of customization. Even just customizing like the color of buttons, faceplate, and backplate is something that I don't think Samsung can do with the Galaxy S4 because they sell so many of them.
I think they could. I think they would have to have the right infrastructure. But I think that if Ford can give you cars in obviously those are much more expensive products, but if they can give you cars in any color, I think you can add, some functionality to an assembly line that changes the color of the back.
I suppose. But I mean, those are very different materials. Those are different scales as well. I mean, you're not selling as many Ford Tauruses or, Priuses necessarily in a month span as you are a Galaxy S4.
Well, God help us if every phone back becomes wood.
Yeah.
Next year we will run out of trees.
Yeah.
Other I think we're all out of questions in chat right now, but that was a lot of fun. So, please
if you get more, just throw them in there.
The NSA's very bad year is the leadoff story in this roundup that we did. I mean, I don't know. I guess I keep saying this, but was anybody surprised? I wasn't surprised by the extent to which people were, the government was monitoring us.
Here's the thing. I am surprised to the extent it was. I wasn't surprised that it was happening. When the first batch of information started coming out of these leaks and the first sort of stuff started coming out, my reaction was one of like, well, of course.
Yeah.
And one of meh.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, yeah, I really wish they weren't, but I'm not super concerned. And then
we lived through September 11th. I mean,
yeah, as the story started to develop, though, and it became clear that there were some really obvious abuses of power, and the extent of the information they were collecting was a lot more detailed and a lot more broad than initially thought. That's when I started to be like, oh, this is kind of terrible. This is like, I don't know. It's
if anything, I'm what's genuinely surprised me is the the reaction from the White House and the reaction from certain bodies of the government where they're trying to kind of nip this thing in the bud.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that 10 years ago probably wouldn't have happened if all this information came out about these leaks. Right?
I don't know. I mean, here I don't know that it's necessarily any different of a reaction. I mean, they're trying.
If people thought that the information they were collecting was fully justified for reasons of fighting terrorism, I guess that people would be a lot more. Not everybody, obviously, but a larger portion of the population would be willing to be complicit in it.
Yeah. But it's clearly not necessary for that.
No, I think that the news of how some of these companies were working with them and how secret a lot of that was concerning. The idea of secret courts is kind of a new one, I think, to most of us.
Well, I mean, if you paid attention post September 11th, secret courts shouldn't be that.
Well, I mean. For different things,
yeah.
But for this solely for the purpose of collecting this information, I think that was a little bit surprising, at least to me.
Yeah. It's as much as there has been, obviously a huge public outcry and a lot of blowback from this. I won't lie that I'm actually kind of shocked how tame it seems at times. And
I'm not.
Maybe it's because I don't have cable anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I stopped watching Fox News for fun. But I feel like I remember people being much more vocal in the aftermath of it being revealed that there was illegal wiretapping under George Bush. Then again, though, I have also, like I said, do not have cable. Have kind of tuned out of things.
Sorry, I've got an email that I need to take care of after this show. Yeah, it's bad wiretapping.
Yeah,
sorry, I got very excited.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, horrible, but. I don't know if maybe I'm just cut off, but I feel like
I don't know. I don't know what it's. I think we're at an age of information overload, where I think it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot more than the government spying on people to get them really freaked out for a long period of time.
That's what I'm wondering. Is it just the thing that we're like, oh yeah, we kind of accepted that was going to happen?
I think it's a combination of that and a combination of. I mean, it's always been hard to sustain outrage. It's just bad for you, for your body. It's
how you end up with ulcers.
Yeah, and that's how things become accepted over time. And B, it's in the age of 24-hour cable news, I think stories take on less value.
Yeah. You can't keep saying, well, even though they do, but I suppose you can't. Nobody's going to sit there and watch 24 hours of Wolf Blitzer talking about the NSA leaks.
Somebody wants to know, will Microsoft become the ecosystem it wants with the Xbox One, Windows 8, and Windows Phone? I mean, I think that Xbox One is probably going to continue to be the most heavily implemented of all of those.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by the question. Will Microsoft become the ecosystem it wants to? Yes, I think they will succeed at making a very tightly integrated, attractive ecosystem for consumers built around Windows 8, Windows Phone, and Xbox One. Will
there be mainstream adoption?
That's a different question.
I think here's what
I don't think Windows Phone is going to compete with.
Do I think Windows 8 will be on a lot of desktops and laptops? Yes. Yeah. A lot of tablets?
No.
Maybe not so much.
Well,
enterprise tablets. I know where you're going with that one.
Well,
right?
No, I was going to say I think it'll end up being on a lot of tablets. If only because your laptops are going to start becoming tablets, whether you want them to or not.
Yeah, I guess the question, as I'm interpreting it, is will people being used to this tile interface on an Xbox One mean that they're going to want to kind of run out and buy a Windows Phone. No, I think that's probably not the case. I don't see anything really changing on that front, but that actually does kind of bring us to the next story, which is Steve Ballmer's out and Microsoft is currently looking for a new CEO. I mean, it's been it's hard to say it's been a rough couple of years because I think Microsoft is still doing just fine. It hasn't been a BlackBerry couple of years.
No. Microsoft is in no danger of going out of business.
But, long term, I mean, it's easy to see them becoming less and less relevant as we move on.
You're starting to see the warning signs of what could be a very serious decline. And that's what the concern is. It's not that in the immediate future, Microsoft is in significant trouble financially or even market share-wise. It's that, it's hard to see where they go from here to maintain such a level of domination.
Yeah, well, they've still got like a probably 95% market share on desktops and laptops at this point. It's somewhere probably in the 90s at this point. So the question isn't, will their market share really start to shrink down on notebooks and desktops? I mean, obviously Apple's made a bit of a go of it in the last couple of years, and they've gained a little traction there. The question is, how relevant will desktops and laptops be in the future? And at least so far as things are looking right now, the answer is probably not really that relevant. And does Microsoft have enough of a foothold in the areas in which technology is skewing right now? Certainly not in laptops. Not in, certainly not in tablets. Certainly not in smartphones. Other software. I think a lot of people have probably moved on to Google Docs. I think that's probably become a pretty popular thing with a lot of people. People certainly aren't spending the hundreds of dollars that they used to in order to get Microsoft Windows on their machine.
Nope.
Or sorry, Microsoft Office.
That's okay. We all knew what you meant.
Yeah. Let's just stop talking.
Yeah, you just sit here and silence.
Yeah, so probably not a huge surprise to see Ballmer on his way. And I guess I expected maybe him to last a year or two longer.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by how quickly it went. That does sort of bring us to another
failure
story here. No, I was going to go in a different direction.
Right.
Talking about the declining relevance of the desktop and laptop.
Okay.
And,
says the guy who's looking at his laptop.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to miss you, baby.
It's been a good couple of decades.
It hasn't, though, has it?
No, it hasn't.
That one's just been a nightmare.
This is the worst thing in the world.
You can call us Mac fanboys all day long, but you hate
I
that
hate
thing.
that machine so much. I only use it when necessary.
Only when you're in front of a camera to upset people.
Yeah, exactly. That's when it's absolutely necessary. What was I saying? Oh, right. Decline of desktop relevancy.
Sure.
And that's, I think, one of the reasons why we're seeing a sudden entrance by what will eventually be the third major player in the quote-unquote console wars, and that's Valve with the Steam box.
You don't think Nintendo's making a big comeback? 2014, 2015?
2014, Valve will be the third.
You don't think the Nintendo 1DS is going to be a big seller when they move their portable down to one dimension?
That'd be pretty amazing.
I don't know. And we had Ben in here last week, and he was certainly arguing in favor of at least how much potential Steam had moving ahead. Certainly, there's a huge user base out there right now. There are millions upon millions of people who use Steam. At least like the few what I've seen from the Steam machines, the early round, I don't see those becoming mainstream devices.
I don't necessarily see the first batch becoming mainstream devices either, and I think it remains.
They're priced really high. I mean, they're priced as much as a PC.
Yeah, and I think
they are PCs.
I think it remains to be seen whether or not they will become successful in the mainstream, but I find it hard to believe that at least some of their attempt to do this isn't based on the obvious decline of the desktop PC. You're not doing heavy gaming on a PC if you don't have a desktop machine. It's the, most people aren't playing Call of Duty Ghosts.
But this is the issue, right? I mean, the early batch of Steam boxes appear to be desktop machines, just in a different form.
Exactly. And going forward, they're probably going to be desktop PCs in a different form, but they won't call them desktop PCs. And so long as you call them Steam boxes, they're no longer computers.
You think that name? I mean, it's not the naming to me, and it's not even the operating system. It's the price.
It is the price, and eventually that will come down, I think. But I mean, the name is just they need to get established, seeing that nobody's going to be buying gaming PCs anymore because they need to sell the hardware to keep Steam alive.
Do you establish a name by coming out with this first round of devices that aren't popular, that nobody gets really excited about? Or do you wait until you can bring something to market that really... I mean, you know, again, we talked about this last week, but if you can do what's essentially, you know, an Ouya, if you can do what's essentially $100, $200 set-top box that runs Steam OS, I mean, yeah, absolutely, that could be a major player.
Well, I think it's a different crowd. They're not going after necessarily the people who are going to spend $100 on a casual console and be happy. They want hardcore gamers.
But you think that people who are out there buying gaming PCs make up enough of the population that makes them the third major console?
I think it'll get them through the initial painful launch period. Mm-hmm. I think and this is one of the advantages of the Steam box model is you can really quickly iterate that.
Yeah.
Because it's modular. It is a desktop PC for all intents and purposes. So they do the first generation of them. If they're $700 or $800 and they're way too expensive and they don't get a lot of adoption, it's not the end of the world, because 6 months down the line, they can release one that's more powerful than the Xbox One and more powerful than the PlayStation 4 and maybe meets the same price.
But here's the issue with working with all these third-party partners on this device is that you have to keep them happy through the process. It's not you as a company making that investment in hardware moving forward.
Look, once again, I'm not saying necessarily that the Steam box is going to be a super successful device. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this play now.
I mean, you are saying that down the road it will be. You were talking at the outset about them being the third major console.
I also don't think it's going to be terribly hard to top Nintendo.
I don't know if
at least in the living room console. On the mobile front, I think it's slightly different.
On the portable front,
yeah, I think 3DS and the 2DS are, reasonably successful devices in a marketplace that doesn't have a ton of competition.
I realize that the Wii U is nowhere near where the Xbox and PlayStation are going to be next year. That said, I don't think that these are tiny numbers we're working with here.
How many Wii U's did Nintendo sell this year?
5.
Do we know?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think that Nintendo still has a pretty strong foothold in Japan, certainly.
I'm sure they do, actually. I think the initial sales numbers on it were decent, and then it took a pretty steep nosedive.
A story just came up saying that PS4 will outsell Wii U globally by spring. So, I mean, that's still a decent number of these boxes out there.
So in 6 months, the PS4 will sell what it took 2.5 years to...
Again, I'm saying that it's nowhere near the PS4 numbers, but I'm saying when you're talking about a device that sold, 4 million in its first few days... that it will take till spring to hit that number. Again, we're not talking about a totally insignificant number. No. Is it far less successful than the Wii?
Yeah.
Unquestionably. Is it, again, long tail not going to be nearly as successful as a PS4 or Xbox One? Absolutely. But they're going to have to sell a friggin' lot of Steam machines.
Oh, no, and they will. Up. I'm more saying that we're clearly watching the decline, though, of Nintendo.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's crazy to say that by the next generation, Nintendo is not going to be number 3.
Yeah, okay, so 5 years from now, 4 years from now, when we see the next machine, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Nintendo looks like. I think Nintendo is dipping its toe in the waters of experimentation right now. Certainly, they're not willing to port Mario over to the iPhone anytime in the near future. But as bad as it ultimately was, I think that the Nintendo Remix game is a sign of a company that knows that it's at least got to kind of sort of try to do something new. So maybe, hopefully, 4 years from now, they'll have figured out a new way forward. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to see Nintendo go away.
No, nobody wants to see Zelda and Mario die.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. They could just pull a Sega.
Yeah.
I think the minute Nintendo announces that they're not making a new console anymore, we're probably going to see Mario, like a really, really buff Mario on an Xbox One. That does actually bring us to the story of the sad decline of another company, which also brings us to
what
sadly and arguably was the largest piece of tech news that came across the wires today, which is that on January 30th. So they've given her actually quite a bit of notice, more than the typical 2 weeks that Alicia Keys.
Usually if you're going to quit, you give 2 weeks notice. You don't get 2 weeks notice when you're fired.
Sure. I mean, if you're Alicia Keys, you do.
I guess.
She's got to, obviously she's got to figure out another way to make money.
I know.
She's got to sign up for unemployment.
It's rough out there.
She's got to roll over her 401k. Yeah. That, I mean, I didn't know that she was officially a spokesperson for BlackBerry anymore. I didn't realize it was still happening.
I didn't realize it was still a thing either.
I mean, here's basically how this story played out for me, at least, was there was a big BlackBerry event. They announced BlackBerry 10. They announced these 2 new devices that were coming out. They announced that Alicia Keys was going to be, I don't know what, the ambassador or something like that.
Creative something or other.
It might have been creative director, actually. They might have given her like an actual real title.
Yeah, hang on, let me see if I can pull it up.
And
she's global creative director.
Global creative
director.
To me means she's sitting in front of a drawing board and sketching out the new BlackBerry handset. I suspect that's probably not what that meant.
No.
It might have been more like...
although if she was, it might explain why the company is in so much trouble. Because I'm just going to throw it out there. Alicia Keys, not a qualified engineer.
I mean...
She's not a product designer by trade.
In Alicia Keys' defense, they were in a little bit of trouble before she jumped on board. But, I would go so far as to say I think Lady Gaga probably had more involvement with those Polaroid cameras than Alicia Keys does with these devices.
Entirely possible.
I mean,
very, very likely. Not even entirely possible. Very, very likely.
I'm trying to even wrap my head around what Alicia Keys would be doing in a creative director position, because again, like the Lady Gaga thing at least made sense. I'm not a Lady Gaga fan by any stretch of the imagination, but it made sense from the standpoint of let's make these things look weird in the way that Lady Gaga looks weird.
Yeah.
They're not going to let Alicia Keys make an Alicia Keys model.
No. I'm not even entirely sure what that would be. It'd be like high gloss ebony wood or something.
Sure.
Like, I don't know.
55 keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so the way the saga played out for me, at least, was Alicia Keys has announced at this big BlackBerry 10 event. 2 months later, the news comes out that she's tweeting from her iPhone. She barely claims that her phone was hacked. That was kind of the end of that story. And then cut to today, she's no longer with the company.
Yeah.
That was literally the last thing I heard about Alicia Keys' involvement with BlackBerry, was the fact that she had written a tweet on an iPhone.
Yep.
So she's out. I mean, here's what I'll say. I mean, they've got a new CEO. Yep. He was probably the first thing he did when he came into the office that day was ask why they were paying Alicia Keys money.
It's a really good question.
I mean,
I think it's the question we all asked on that day that she came out on stage. We went, why?
Well, from the standpoint of like, you want an athlete wearing your tennis shoes, right? You want a television host wearing your suit. I mean, you want, maybe you want some famous celebrities who skew younger to be using your product to make it look a little bit cooler.
That's fine. But there's a difference between like an endorsement deal with Alicia Keys and the commercials using the BlackBerry Z10 or whatever, and Alicia Keys, creative director, coming out on stage at your press event, talking for 5 minutes, and then never being seen again by the public anywhere near your devices.
Yeah, but again, that was something I don't think we knew from day one. We were all scratching our heads, but I don't think we realized like how little involvement she would have.
Well, yeah, we didn't realize how bad it was going to be that day.
What if the announcement today wasn't that they were firing her? What if the announcement today was that she was like getting a new position?
She was becoming the CEO.
Well, I was thinking
she was taking over after the interim guy leaves.
What if she was doing like inventory? Or what if like
she was managing a warehouse?
Yeah, or she was working at a Rogers store.
Yeah.
In Ontario, right? What if they're like, we like her work ethic. We certainly like her music. We're trying to find a new role within the Blackberry family for Alicia Keys.
Yeah.
I'm going to open this up to chat. If you've got to keep Alicia Keys around in Blackberry, what should her new role be? She was global creative director before. What should Alicia Keys be moving forward?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know enough about her music to make jokes. So she seems lovely.
Yeah. I mean,
this should have been the year for BlackBerry, right? I mean, all things considered, this should have been the year that at least they got like a little bit of that market share back. This was the year
it needed to be, and it wasn't.
But from the standpoint of it, literally the first month of the year in January, BlackBerry 10 is finally coming out. We knew about QNX for a long time. We knew this thing was coming. We saw the playbook. We knew that they were finally going to be releasing these phones. They kept pushing it back. Started off the year with a bang, even though they didn't really show their faces at CES, which left people worried. But a few weeks later, they announced a new operating system. Looks pretty decent. They announced 2 new devices. Look pretty decent. Everything else but that has been a total S show in the parlance of our times.
Everybody has picked the obvious position for Alicia Keys making ringtones.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys can do better.
I like that. I do like the idea of like her just like sitting at a BlackBerry banging these things out.
Yeah. Just like actually composing said ringtones on the BlackBerry itself.
Yeah.
Go back to like monophonic.
What if this was part of the deal that if her stock didn't turn around, that she had to compose her next album entirely on a BlackBerry?
That would be pretty great.
I would buy that.
Just to hear it, just to see what it was like.
Yeah.
I think I might too.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, we're talking about months and months of layoffs, which obviously is nothing new, and that actually this is a rare instance of those layoffs actually going all the way up to the top, because pretty much everybody in a C-level position, including Torsten Heinz, is no longer with the company right now.
Yep. It's a complete gutting and reboot basically at this point of the company.
I mean, they finally, we had to. We were waiting for waiting for BBM to come on Android and iOS, and this was the year of that. But even that,
I honestly forgot that happened.
Yeah.
You just said that and I went, oh right,
yeah,
that is a thing.
There are. I mean, this is let this be a warning sign to Nintendo actually, and
to Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft's got
to a lesser extent,
yeah,
but.
And Nintendo from the standpoint of Nintendo has what BlackBerry has in that, like, I mean, at least from the BBM standpoint, Nintendo's main thing that it has going for it right now is intellectual property.
Yep.
Its ability to make, is these really great characters that we all love, and the ability to make some pretty good games around them.
Not just pretty good, some great
games around them. And BlackBerry 10 is an example. I would argue the Q10 more than the Z10 is an example. BBM is an example of something that had it arrived 3 years ago, probably would have been very successful.
Absolutely.
And they just waited too long.
Yep.
And that's why I think this is a cautionary tale for Nintendo.
No, it absolutely is.
If it's clear to us at least. These obviously we're running a lot of multi-billion-dollar international companies, but it seems pretty clear what the way forward for Nintendo is, and it seemed pretty clear what the way forward for BlackBerry is. But I understand that it's really hard for, again, a multinational corporation to just make a huge pivot.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I get that. Ultimately, it'd almost be seen like admitting defeat.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to do that. But
you've been defeated.
Yeah. Or,
you've been vanquished.
Look at it as an opportunity to try to save face and make a little bit extra money while you go down. You don't have to do... Yeah. Nintendo doesn't even have to do the Sega thing where they just go, all right, screw it, we're not making hardware anymore. everybody gets Sonic games. And let's also be really honest about this. Nintendo has much better intellectual property to base franchises
Sonic
around
aside,
than Sega.
what it said. I mean, Toe Jam and Earl didn't really sell.
I mean, Toe Jam and Earl was great.
Yeah.
But nobody was rushing out and buying Toe Jam and Earl 3 that Xbox, I think it came out on. Nobody knows or cares.
I didn't know there was a 3.
Yeah.
The difference I think between BlackBerry and Nintendo in this analogy though is BlackBerry to a degree, I think bringing BBM may have been admitting defeat. I don't think it would be with Nintendo because I think that you can redefine yourself as a company and not be defeated. I mean, if they turned into a software company, they could still be a hugely successful gaming company. I don't think anybody would think necessarily that they failed as a company.
No. Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that bringing BBM to iOS and Android would be admitting defeat or necessarily needs to be seen as admitting defeat. Because by extending that platform, one of the most compelling reasons to own a BlackBerry to other devices, you're not necessarily taking away a reason to own a BlackBerry, but you're giving owners of BlackBerry a broader reach. Sure. It's, expanding that ecosystem and making this useful thing, and then building mind share with other users on other platforms. Eventually, was the BlackBerry hardware going to go away? Most likely. They hadn't built a really compelling handset in a very long time.
Will we ever see an iPod that works on Windows? No. Will we ever see Microsoft Windows on a Mac? Not going to happen. This has been the Engadget Podcast. No, it makes sense, or I guess retroactively would have made sense. We actually managed to fill up an hour of podcast time, and I'm very excited about that. So congratulations, Terrence. What are you? I got to run to the bank and pick up rent money right now. What for the bank probably closes at 5, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
that seems fair, right?
Yep.
I got to go do that. One final question though: what are you looking forward to most? Assuming that we get to CES, what are you looking forward to most at CES?
Besides just spending time with you guys, getting our Engadget bro love on. I don't know.
The whiskey room.
Yeah, the whiskey room. Yeah, the whiskey room.
I'm looking for. I think there's gonna be a lot of exciting. Obviously this is my thing, but I think there's gonna be a lot of exciting 3D printing.
Yeah,
3D scanning software.
I don't know. Honestly, this is. I mean, not that last year was a super exciting year at CES. But I feel like this year, even more so than last year, it's kind of hard to identify anything that I'm like, oh, no, I'm really amped up for this. Like, there's going to be cool stuff, but I can't single out a thing that I'm like...
it's going to be a lot of TVs, but I'm hoping that our coverage of, not just our coverage, but just the tech industry's coverage of last year's show is really emboldening a lot of these smaller companies to have a bigger presence there. Because that was everybody's highlight of last year's show, or these little, Kickstarter projects.
Yeah, because they were the most exciting. But the thing with that is it's hard to say that I'm excited about that because we have no idea what half of them are going to be doing until we show up.
But I'm excited. This is the reason why conventions, at least in the near future, are going to continue to be a thing. I mean, I understand why they're dying off in a sense, but the ability to actually see these things in person is pretty important. So I'm excited to, I'm excited to be at this stage all week. You've got a couple of sessions at the stage as well. I do like. I'm probably opening up Pandora's box here, but I do like it when people come by and show off their kind of like weird, their weird things.
Yes,
not in the bathroom.
No,
time and a place.
Yeah,
time
not
and a place.
In the bathroom.
Yeah,
do not pitch one of us on anything while we're urinating, please.
How long till CES? Well, how long till we're at CES? Literally like a day or two.
Yeah,
CES officially starts next Tuesday.
Yep.
So 5 days,
and then runs technically through Thursday, right? 3 days.
Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
Friday's the last day?
Yeah.
I can't even remember.
Stage is still out on a Friday, so hopefully there'll still be people there. Stay tuned for that. We are going to be overworked and underslept, but hopefully you guys you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll enjoy it. We'll enjoy it retroactively.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see how much we're enjoying it once we get on camera for our many podcasts and stage interviews.
Seriously, take it. Somebody out there take a screenshot of my face every single day and just see. just see the black circles around my eyes.
Not just every day. You need to do one first thing in the morning, post lunch, and then at the end of the day.
Well, I just want them to chart my chart my downfall.
You can see your face start to just go, meh.
I was looking. I had to look at some pictures of me last year, and it was nightmarish.
Bags and you need to get you some like cover up or something this year.
Oh, me specifically? Yeah.
Well, you're the one who spends the most time on camera.
I'm sorry, America. And the best of awards. That's gonna be a lot of fun too. So CES coming up. We'll be doing a lot of these things.
So much.
Terrence O'Brien on Twitter. I'm at Be Here on Twitter. And this Engadget podcast has been brought to you by Verizon's Powerful Answers, because the world's biggest challenges deserve even bigger solutions. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in like 3 days. CES, it's the best. Stay tuned.